And good morning. Welcome back to the Key West News Hour here on KONK, Call Community Radio. I'm your host, Guy DeBourne. Joining us in the studio this morning is critically acclaimed photographer, Miss Annabelle Williams. Good morning, Annabelle.
Good morning.
Annabelle, this is our second interview because your story is our feature for next week of a photo spread that you did of a transformation. And here in Key West, we're all familiar with drag queens, in other words, men becoming women. But Ben Teague is not a professional drag queen. Tell us how you discovered about Ben and witnessing and then wanting to shoot this transformation.
Okay, well, when I first came to Key West about 4 or 5 years ago, I went to my first drag show. I'd never seen a drag queen in my life, and I was just completely amazed by these guys who could look so amazingly like women. And my profession has always been about photographing women, making them look the best they can possibly look. And I sat there and saw these guys, and I thought, wow, what could I do with these people? They look absolutely amazing. And if I could just get out there and transform them and make them look like real women rather than sort of glitzy women, do you know what I mean?
Now, what's Ben's intrigue on this transformation?
Well,
why does Ben choose to become as we say, not a professional drag queen, but to do it occasionally?
Well, a couple of years later, I was at the Key West Closet Ball, and he was running it, and he was in that show. He'd won it the year before, I think, and I was completely blown away by how he looked. It was such an androgynous look. He was like a woman, but he had his chest showing, so you knew he wasn't a woman, and it was just amazing. I was totally inspired by it, and I just wanted to do a shoot of him.
Now, how does a man do the transformation when you say he had his chest showing? How's that technique?
Well, he had a black tutu on and some high leather boots, but he had pasties on his nipples, which looked, just amazing. So you knew it was a man. But he had amazing blonde wig on, and he just looked sensational. And I just wanted to take him out and shoot him like that, rather than the fake boobs type thing.
So to talk about this transformation, this photo shoot that you participated in, to go from Ben Teague, the man, to does he have a stage persona?
Yeah, he does. He's called Aurora.
Aurora.
Yeah.
So from Ben to Aurora. Tell us about that and how you captured the moment.
Well, basically, Aurora was the shoot that I did last of him because I like to take people through a process. I like to go start them, trying to get them to be relaxed, because the one thing about shooting people is you need to get them relaxed. It's no good just standing there with a camera. It terrifies them. And I need to get the best picture I can possibly get of someone. So we started off, we went out opposite Home Depot, in fact, and did a shoot over there. We got quite a few strange looks, but we shot him, first of all, in kind of a tartan skirt and a blonde wig that he'd made himself with all sorts of red bows in it, which was really incredible. And then we moved on to shooting him in the black tutu, exactly as I wanted to shoot him, which was fantastic. And we just used the car for the makeup. We did have a makeup artist at first that did the makeup for us, because it was so hot, it was just running down his face the whole time. So he kept having to go back in the car and, redo all his makeup and things like that. And it was just a fantastic day.
And when you talk about this transformation, what were the stages that you captured the moment?
Well, we started by actually making him look like a woman, with the makeup and the hair and the chiseled jawline. And I was amazed by how much makeup had to be put on to cover stubble and things like that. It was very different from the makeup on a woman. Is that the term that you call cake makeup? Yeah, probably. It's not the sort of makeup I normally use, but I can see why you have to do that for a guy, because you've got to make their skin look very soft and feminine, which is the giveaway, really. And
so there was the makeup side of it. What about the techniques that he uses to change his body?
Well, he's got a very good body already, but he puts a corset on, obviously, to try and get more of a waist, because, guys don't tend to have the same sort of waist that women have. I'm amazed by the drag queens that I see around that have these gorgeous long legs. It's amazing. Lucky people, it's not fair, really. But Ben puts a corset on, makes it look tighter, makes his waist look tighter and things like that. And then, of course, high-heeled shoes really make a difference, make people much taller and look, more like a tall, modelly woman, really.
Now, I understand that Ben, or Aurora, I should say, also has such lovely breasts. What's the technique used for that?
Oh, that was hilarious. I didn't realise that they filled their pantyhose with rice. They filled it with dry rice, and then he cuts the pantyhose and knots it, and the knot obviously makes a nipple. And then apparently these boobs are much more pliable, but they were hilarious.
And so this transformation, you now have the proper makeup on. You've got the the female adornments that have been added to the male body, the corset and stuff. What's the final end result? How did it turn out?
It's really important positioning people. That's one of the ways you get a really good photograph of somebody. I mean, you can still take a guy out there and he's in a dress and he looks like a man in a dress if you're not careful. So you have to position him in a very feminine way, you know, and he's good at doing that because he's used to performing on stage, not as a professional drag queen, but he has done it occasionally. And but still in a photo, I have to move him and position him so that he looks very feminine.
So as you say, as a photographer, you specialize in making women beautiful. If someone wanted to see your work in the future, how do they see your work online?
Well, I have a website called www.annabellewilliams.com, and if you go to that, I write a blog about all my shoots. Lots of those shoots are done in Key West. You know, there are guys, there are women, there are children, there are all sorts of different shoots on there. And I also teach people how to take photographs themselves.
That's the other thing, is really you're big into education.
That's right. I mean, I've been training photographers for about the last 20 years, professionals and amateurs. And now I think, you know, the whole world has changed so much with all these camera phone apps. They're just incredible. And so I'm teaching people how to use their iPhone to take pictures and just basically where to put people, where the best light is, and how to, you know, the psychology of understanding people and how they feel about having their photograph taken. That makes a huge difference to how your result of your photo will be.
Well, I can't wait to totally see the photographs, the transformation of Ben Teague through Aurora. Thank you for joining us here on KONK Radio.
Thanks, Guy.